So the two biggest announcements from this week's WWDC revolved around the iPad and the Mac Pro, the new Mac Pro. And that's a little bit strange because that's not usually where Apple's focus is in its annual developers conference. So that got me thinking, how are these two announcements related? Because on the surface, they don't really seem to connect. But when you put them together, I think it starts to paint a pretty clear picture about the future of both of these platforms and how Apple is saving the Mac using the Mac Pro from the iPad. So let's start with the new Mac Pro. Not only did Apple bring back the cheese grater design, they're also returning to a focus on power and expandability, which the previous trash can design definitely did not have. It's not going to be enough to please PC enthusiasts. I mean, this is still Apple, and everything here is basically still proprietary, but it's a big change in direction for the Mac. I'm not going to get into all the details right now, but basically, this is not a computer that was made for you. It's not for prosumers, it's not for the average creative professional, it's not really for a single person at all. It's for companies and workers who love the Apple ecosystem and ethos, but need that power and expandability that used to be a part of the Mac Pro platform, and now it is again. With things like the Afterburner card and having up to 8 PCIe slots, this is actual innovation coming from Apple in the desktop computing world. And when's the last time we could say that? So yeah, this new Mac Pro is the future of the Mac. I can tell you what isn't the future of the Mac, and that's the Macbook, which is currently on its 4th generation using the same chassis and gets tweaks in the software that are so marginal that the most noticeable thing you'll see about it when you install it is a new default wallpaper. In fact, all the actual changes that are coming in Mac OS Catalina, which is this year's update, don't actually improve the Mac experience in itself. It just makes it play nicer with an iPad or makes it feel more like an iPad in general. Whether that's paving the way forward for iPad apps to actually come to the Mac via Project Catalyst, or even being able to use an iPad as a second screen in Sidecar. Which brings me, of course, to the iPad itself. When word got out that Apple was going to be launching a new operating system designation for the iPad itself called, yep, you guessed it, iPad OS, I could feel the entire Digital Trends office eye-rolling all at once. But really, it's just giving a name to something that's been happening for a long time in the world of the iPad. iOS on an iPad has evolved into a very different experience than it is on mobile. With everything from multitasking to gestures, it just feels like a different type of device that's made for a different type of use case. Every year, Apple claims that the iPad can actually replace a real computer, which, side note, the MacBook is an actual computer, so if you still think that they are thinking of these things in different categories, keep that in mind. But this time with iPad OS and the new features that are coming this year, I think it actually might be true. So what's new this year with the iPad? I mean, a lot of things, but improved multitasking, an improved filing system, and even, get this, USB support and mouse support for the iPad. This is something that people have been asking for a very long time, and it was honestly one of the main things that kept the iPad from being able to replace an actual computer. At this point, the only thing missing from the iPad Pro is a proper case that comes with a keyboard and a touchpad, like an actual laptop does. And even if Apple never actually releases that, you can bet that third-party companies will be putting out those peripherals soon. Because here's the thing, the iPad Pro is already faster in a lot of ways than these lower-end MacBooks that are out there. And that gap is only going to widen in the future. Right now, when you go into a coffee shop, you'll still see the sea of silver MacBooks out there, and for good reason. In the 2000s, Apple really pushed this idea that anyone could be a creative. All you need to do is buy a MacBook or an iMac, and it'd be off to, recording music and making your own films. And a lot of that is slowly transitioning over to the iPad. At least that's what Apple wants. Apple wants you to not only use your iPad for relaxing and for media consumption, but actually for real work. I mean, if you look at the features that are coming to the iPad, they're all about getting actual work done on this device. They want this device to be the single thing that can do both parts of your life. Why, you might ask? Well, it's because Apple actually owns the iPad. They have more control over that platform. And for a company like Apple, that's always going to be the most important factor. So what about the Mac? Well, I'm no fortune teller, but I think just looking at these announcements, it's pretty clear that the Mac is going to be the solution that's only used for extreme use cases like the iMac Pro or the Mac Pro. I'm not saying Apple is going to be retiring the MacBook Pro next year or anything like that. There'll always be a spot in their lineup for creative professionals who need to take their work on the go. But at the pace that it's at, I mean, it's hard to not see that the iPad Pro will be encroaching on that every year, both in terms of features and the software and in terms of the capabilities of the hardware. So don't worry, this isn't gonna happen overnight. In fact, I think it's gonna be years in the making for this transition to actually happen. But make no mistake, if there's one thing I got from WWDC that was very clear, it's this. Something as crazy as the new Mac Pro was the only way Apple can save the Mac. So thanks for watching this video. I'm really curious what you guys think. Do you think I'm completely wrong? Am I crazy? Are they gonna release a 15-inch MacBook Pro next year that's gonna completely blow all this out of the water? Please, let me know. Fill me in the comments below. Let me know what you think, and make sure to subscribe for Digital Trends for more coverage of Mac Pro, Apple, and all things tech. Stay tuned.